you can actually use spot freight to get contracts. Another thing that Manifold lets you do, whether you're using us through a third-party platform or us, is you can historically look easily through all old shipments you didn't bid on. You can look at like there's a bunch of analytics, huge analytics component for this. Well, what one of our customers does is they use it to go like find, hey, looks like this shipper or looks like this broker is regularly posting this load on this lane. Then they will call them up and they'll say, hey, I really want this lane. Can we make a dedicated contract if it's a broker, right? Or if it's a shipper, they're like, can we just like add this to the end? And so that's a great way to just like actually get contracts, right? Yeah. Also, I think a great way to get a contract is you do a few spot loads, right? You show yourself you're doing a great job, and then you go, hey, can we just like take all this on? And more often than not, I think so. I think there's like that aspect of it.
Welcome back to the ThinkFreight Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Thomas Wardeen, and I'm excited to have Oliver Jones. He's the founder of Manifold. Oliver, welcome to the pod, man.
Hello, thank you. It's great to be here.
Dude, you have such a cool background. You were with Convoy for just about 6.5, almost 7 years. They were kind of the pioneer in the digital brokerage space, but you've now pioneered your own path in Manifold, dealing with a lot of spot market stuff. So I want to dive into kind of who you are, tell the audience a little bit about kind of your background and the time you spent with Convoy and kind of those final days, but then we'll also, dive into the spot market, kind of those challenges, and then your transition into Manifold. So why don't we start with kind of your background, who you are, and how you originally got into kind of the logistics industry and kind of got in with Convoy as well.
Yeah. So I'm an engineer or a software engineer, and I used to work in a lot of systems development, working like really large storage systems. I always wanted to work at a startup. And so I started looking around, and Convoy was an up-and-coming startup, a number of years ago. And so I went and my old manager was the VP of engineering there. So he was like, hey, come check it out. And when I went up there for the interview, I was just like enamored by, there's a bunch of brokers there, and they're all on the phones, and there's like a ton of energy. And I was just like, I kind of like immediately was hooked. I was joined super early in on that venture. I was like the 12th engineer.
Wow.
Built some of the payment systems, invoicing systems, just had a really, really good time. Eventually I moved more to management, and just like, honestly, actually I worked in every single part of the business, the like load execution part, what we call the demand, which is like interfacing with the shippers, trying to bring in freight, and then the carrier, space. And it was actually in the demand space where I was leading a team to automate our bidding, where I kind of stumbled upon this problem that Manifold's background is, where, we had to go interface with all of these shippers. And it was a huge pain in the butt to go, get all these shippers, bid on all their spot freight, the shippers' spot freight. And so there's kind of two parts of it. There's like getting the spot freight into your system, and there's automatically bidding on it. And I was like, I really don't want to pay attention to the bringing the spot freight into their system. That's just be like just basic math. And we try to look around for a bunch of folks of like, hey, can you connect, regardless whether they have API or not API, can you just like bring all my shipper spot freight right into our system so we can go automatically bid on it? And there are very few solutions out there. In fact, not really any, or the solutions that were out there were like trying to be all encompassing and were really expensive. And so I was like, I think that would be a really good business idea, is, someone that's just focused on aggregating the spot freight, and then letting you as like the end user kind of decide what you want to go do with it. But anyways, I ultimately ended my time there with carriers. And I realized that they had even a bigger problem, right? Because they have both shipper freight and they have broker freight. And so they're like looking at like 20, 30 different tabs, right? Trying to go find, where the spot freight. So when Manifold closed its doors, I stayed there right until the very end. In fact, I was like took part in kind of like dismantling. I had the option to go to Flexport, but ultimately I was like, let's just go try to do a startup. It was a dream of mine. And so I called up a number of carriers. They're like, hey, would you pay for a product like this? And as soon as one of them said yes, all right, I was like, okay, I'm quitting my job and I'm going into startup life.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I mean, like Convoy had so much money poured into it, significant backers. So it's like maybe what was working at a company like that, like you said, you when you interviewed, you kind of felt that buzz of the brokerage floor. It can be really exhilarating to feel that. I remember when I had my first interview at TQL, it was kind of the
Yeah.
same way. Everyone's on the phones, you hear the gong hits,
Yeah.
everyone's having fun. What is, kind of what is working for a company like that? And then what did you kind of take from that life into your own startup?
Yeah, sure. I think a number of things were working really well. Generally, I think like they had a lot of things like they were on the track with a lot of things. So
Yeah,
leveraging technology, I think is huge. And I know, like there's going to be a bunch of people out there like Convoy wasn't the first to leverage technology, and you're absolutely right.
right.
So I am not at all saying that. However, I do think we had a number of cool innovations of just like because of how we approach the carrier side. So, for
It
example,
was a different way they leveraged technology.
yeah, and like detention is a great example. Like I was on the team
Yeah.
that built automated detention for
Mm,
carriers. I think this is relatively new. I'm not aware of anyone else that had done that before, where the carrier
same.
pulls up. We start tracking, and they have to go on their app, and they can sudden a button pops up and just says like request attention, and like
Yep.
there's no other like BS that they have to go about. Right? We just made it really simple for them. Or quick pay, for example. Right?
Yeah.
We did make them jump through some hoops, like, hey, you have to have your app on, you have to have location services, you have to check into the stop. You got to do your job, but
Right.
but then we'll just give you quick pay. And so I think a lot of those ways of using, technology and adding like trying to use technology to like trust but verify, but
Yeah.
like really smooth the interactions between the carrier and the broker. I think was done really well, and I think, I would totally want to repeat that. Um, so I think, and then I like also just being like tech first, like really trying to go like push the boundaries of, some brokerages, right? They kind of, they have this agent model
Yeah.
where, everyone's kind of out for themselves, versus Convoy really try to push for let's optimize for the entire company, right? That's not
Mm,
even a tech thing. That's just like an organizational structure thing. And I think that
right.
worked really well. So those are definitely things that I, take to my startup is, yeah.
So you were involved in kind of winding down the operations. Can you kind of walk us through a little bit of kind of like what those final days were like and kind of some of those difficult decisions that kind of had to be made, right? Like I'm sure that you guys were left in the dark kind of until the end. So kind
Yeah.
of what was that like and what was what were those final days like?
It was miserable, man. I put 7 years of my life into that company, and I worked really hard.
Yeah.
And I seriously cried when I didn't, not immediately, but like when Dan told us everything was closed, and I was like, wow, I guess that's it, right? I had a lot
Yeah.
riding on it. I, gave up, salary for stock. I put in tons of long hours because I believe in the mission. So it was tough.
Yeah.
Um, but and it was even more tough because then you're seeing like I was working the carrier side at that point, and we were trying to grow our larger carriers, and I immediately was like, holy crap, I don't know if we're gonna pay them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like it became pretty quickly clear of the company was in debt, right? The bank was taking over the loans, and so it's not like
Yeah.
you just know how that works, and I'm not an expert here, but you pay your credit, you only can pay so many people off because there's only so much money and the bank's taking over. So it's not like
Yeah.
us as a business have no control anymore of anything.
Yeah.
It's like whatever the bank decides. And so I was just looking at those carriers though, going, oh my God, this is about the worst feeling ever. Cause I know they can't, some were owed like
Yeah.
50, up to 50K higher, probably. I'm sure there's some higher story. And like, how do you handle that as like a family run business? Like, I don't know. It was definitely miserable in those last few days, right? No one's feeling good.
Yeah.
um,
No, for sure, man. What maybe looking back, are there any lessons or like what are some of your key takeaways that maybe influenced your approach to really building and running Manifold and maybe maybe in a different light than Convoy as well?
yeah, yeah. I'd say, One of the big things that I really try to push at Manifold is focusing on one thing. Like
Yeah.
I want to be really careful to like throw stones at Convoy because it's like, especially now being his leader myself,
Yeah.
it's so hard to make decisions, right? You're just trying to do the right thing, hustle, make things happen. But I would say that Convoy probably tried to do too much.
Mm.
And we spent a lot of engineering resources going on all these different bets. And probably, in a different world where money was flowing from the skies, maybe you could have gotten away with it. But in this much more capital strained environment, I'm like, no, you got to do one thing. You got to do it really well. And that's what we try to eat and breathe at Convoy or at Manifold is let's really focus on spot aggregation. It's why I actually try to do a lot more partnerships where we're saying, hey, let's go aggregate the spot freight and let's go pass it off to you to go maybe do the optimization on it, or let's go pass it off to you to go do the automated bidding on it. And we're just going to get really good at aggregating all the spot freight in one spot, and then we can work with different partners. I think it allows you to build a lot more quality product, instead of being frazzled, like working on a bunch of different things and like barely holding on to your pants to build really quality product. Yeah. And I think it shows like in the customer retainment of us, like, we have 100% customer retainment. Anyone that like, once they start becoming a paying customer, they've like never left. And it just feels better too, right? Like I feel so much more proud of what we're building because, like everything's like accounted for and it's like, tip top shape.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, man. What you said about Convoy is I've heard that a lot is they were trying too many irons in the fire, right? They were focusing on everything, and that was fine, when they had a not so cash strapped environment. But when the freight market flipped, when investment money starts to really go away, when it starts to dry up, it's tough to continue on with some of these ventures and not, hey, let's focus in on maybe 3 of these 12 things instead of all of them and get really good at them while the market's down. It just kind of seemed like a Convoy was going with kind of their grow at all costs method no matter what, and it just kind of caught up to them all in the end.
Yeah, and maybe not catching on quite to it. They definitely did the layoffs, but it's just maybe not aggressive enough. But it's so hard. You're like, everyone's hoping maybe this is temporary, but then inflation, then the Fed starts raising rates and then you make the capital harder. But no, definitely. But all that being said is like, I'm definitely like, no, I'm not, I want to keep my business around, right? Yeah. Like I love it. Like, and so I'm going to be a lot more conservative in our approach.
So I want to transition that, I think that's a good point to move into Manifold, right? So obviously you've founded Manifold, you could have went to Flexport and you could have kind of gone down that path, continued on building for another company. I guess I know it was kind of always a dream, but like, what was always that like maybe inspiration to go after spot freight specifically?
Yeah, it was definitely my time in the demand space. It was like between the focus on shippers and carriers where I learned 2 things there. One is it seemed it was extremely fragmented, right? Yes. I know there's DAT out there, but if you want to, like, let's say you don't want to work with DAT, and let's say I want to work directly with my shippers, which your shipper's freight's not on DAT, right? And I don't want to work directly with my favorite brokers. Your favorite brokers freight, for the most part, for a lot of folks, is not on DAT, right? It's like on their own broker's load board. It's really hard to interface with. So I was like, I saw a real problem there, and I was like, something you try to find when you're trying to do a start. And then the other side is I saw all the money opportunity there. I know everyone's a lot of times are focused on contracts, but spot freight made a Convoy a ton of money, like even up to the end, right? It was not spot freight, like, you know what I mean? Like that's not what killed the company. Like we were making great money on our spot freight. Like our automated bidding worked really well. It allowed us to be much more sophisticated and disciplined with our pricing, right? Where we would, we treat it very much like a science. And I do think there's an art aspect to it, but we really, and you could look on historically, how are we doing, right? And you kind of like really ratchet up. So both those together was very much the, like, let's go dive into this space and see if we can't help make it better.
So what is Manifold? we've danced around it a bit, but what is it? What are you guys doing? Who are you guys helping? And yeah.
Yeah. So Manifold is a spot aggregation solution. So if you think about it, and we're not your traditional load board, right? People don't post loads on our platform. What you are is, and our main customer is carriers. So you're a carrier, typically a little bit larger, that we service all carriers. And let's say that you work with C.H. Robinson, Echo Logistics, and you work with a few shippers, right? You might work with, and I'm going to use big names here, but Niagara, Goodyear, I don't know. Take your shipper.
Yeah, big names that everyone knows. Yeah.
What we'll do is if you already have a relationship with those things, we'll directly connect you to those shippers, and we'll directly connect you to those brokers, and we'll bring all their spot freight into our platform. So you no longer have to go to four different tabs to go search for that spot freight. You just have one spot where you can go. And
got it. So if I'm ThinkFreight Trucking, I've got 50 trucks, and I'm working with 3 shippers, and I'm working with 3 different brokers on a very regular basis. Yeah. Obviously, there's probably a few more here and there, but on a very regular basis, I've got those 6. So I can basically use Manifold and tie all of those opportunities from my brokers, from my shippers, all into like a Manifold kind of board, load board. So I can see all the opportunities in my network that would potentially or would be there, and then I can look at the board and pick the ones or go bid on the ones that make the most sense for me and my operations.
And then I would say what especially differentiates us though is while we do have a front end facing feature and we do court customers directly, that's actually not most of our business. Okay. Most of our business is actually working with other freight tech companies. So, for example, we work with Optimal Dynamics, right? They are this really cool freight optimization platform that, they'll help a big fleet be like, these trucks should do this load from like this contract. And what we help them do is like the spot freight. We're like, hey, a carrier has a bunch of spot freight, and you have your contracts. Which one should you go do? And so Optimal Dynamics already does all the optimization. We don't want to get into the business, believe me. Like we're just not going to be able to compete with them. But what we can help them do is make their technology a lot better.
Yeah.
And so that's like mostly what we're trying to do. And also like have this big philosophy of meet people where they're at. Like I do not want to create another tool for carriers, right? Come on, like they don't need another portal to go to. So like we want to go partner with TMSs and say, hey, let's go get more spot freight in your TMS so that the carrier, right? It's probably this is the best place for them to go look for it anyways. They know their truck availability there. If you have a TMS, here's all your spot opportunities. Here's your contracts. You can go merge and you can make amazing decisions now. Right. So I really see the big value in this, not so much as like, we love to like sell to people that like, hey, I just want this one-off solution. Great.
Yeah.
I think you get most value by using us in partnering with a TMS or partnering with a load optimization platform or partnering, with a factoring company, something like that.
No, for sure. And that's a cool way to go about it, right? You can kind of tie in kind of like what you said at the very beginning is you don't want to focus on all the other aspects of it. You want to focus on one really core aspect, be really good at it, be the market leader in that aspect, and then partner with everyone else who can make your product better or to make their product better with their offering, right? So I think that's pretty unique. Can you walk us through like maybe how Manifold can help, carriers better with, finding, bidding, and kind of analyzing spot freight? Obviously, that may be through partnerships and TMSs, but what makes kind of Manifold different from everyone else in terms of being able to look at everything and being able to analyze what's best and what they can do at that level?
I would say it's a merging of the volume and quality of freight. So, I think DAT has a bunch of volume, and I think it's like DAT has some great things about it. So, but DAT has a bunch of volume. I would say the qualities can be spotty.
Absolutely.
Versus what we offer is both volume and quality, right? We're only connecting you to people you want to work with. And so I think that's a huge differentiating factor because now you just filtered out like a bunch of the world, right? You're like, okay, I have all this quality, I have all this volume. I get like half my battle is I don't have to worry about fraud. I don't have to worry about getting paid. I don't have to worry about dealing with some, asshole, or I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
Yeah, please.
like the point is you like already one happy battle there, and then now you can with that some other things fall into place. Like, okay, instead of having to go to 20 different load boards, right? And seriously, a lot, like that's like the average number of load boards. You know, when I say load board, I mean like a shipper specific load board, you know, for Niagara, or like a broker load board. Instead of having 20 tabs open, you can have one thing. So now your ability to like find that perfect backhaul, right, that fits in with your network is just way easier. Either A, you're saving a bunch of time, or B, in more cases, you're you are saving a bunch of time. And then B, your chance to find it, right, is going to be way higher. So you're not only saving time, but you're also going to find a better, you're going to reduce that deadhead. You're going to find that better load. And then you're going to, ultimately it's going to help you make more money.
No, I think that's cool because, okay, so my thought, I was thinking this as you were talking about it. So if I see this a lot in Facebook groups, I see this a lot on Twitter, you know, carriers who work with a bunch of different brokers, they miss opportunities because they called 5 minutes too late.
Yep.
And it's like, hey, if they had just been able to see that opportunity 5 minutes earlier, instead of having to potentially, you know, go from truck stop to DAT to a broker board to a shipper board, you know, there's plenty of, you know, we're talking, you know, you and I are sitting here saying 3 to 5 shippers, but I know a lot of carriers who work with 25 or 30 different, you know, brokers and and shippers and you know, different aspects. So it can be really, really insane to try to find freight. So I think that bringing it all together is just, I think it's cool, man. I think that that's a really unique aspect that not a lot of people think about right now. And I think that's interesting.
In fact, I was just talking to a customer yesterday.
Yeah,
and he was thanking me. He was like, they lost a major account. So, you know, they're larger. Did I say shipper on my? I was talking to a larger carrier. They you know, they do a lot of contract freight. So I think one thing I try to tell people is like, just because you only do 15% of spot freight doesn't mean that Manifold can't be super useful to your company, because that actually
for sure
companies we work with. So they normally do 85% contract. They lost a big contract with one of their main customers, dropped like 8%, right? Like it was like 8% of their loads. And he was like, we were down 2 operators, but because it was like so simple to book freight on Manifold, right? Because like it was all their shipper freight, all their broker freight. We actually ended up booking more loads. like they're like, they have this goal of like number of miles in a week. And they hit like a second of all time best, like a month after they lost this major customer. And he was like, I don't know what we would have done without it, right? Because all this, you know, we were able to search. They have like almost 30,000 loads on their, you know, across all their different customers. So he was like, they were able to book like mad. And he's like, it actually ended up working out just fine for us. Even though like for a moment there, they were like really worried, right? I mean,
full panic mode for a minute there.
Yeah.
Like I can, you know, I only have the brokerage experience, right? But I can see I have a lot of friends who are carriers, you know, still to this day. And I can, you know, I talk to them about how they optimize things and how they go about looking for, you know, all the best loads. And a lot of them are just trying to go for, a lot of the ones I talk to anyway, and my friends, they're all trying to stay more regional. They're trying to find those daily opportunities, those, you know, hey, I can get 2 of these in one day, and then, you know, do 4 of them, or do, you know, work Monday to Thursday and take Fridays off. And there's a lot of those opportunities out there, right? But that's not what everyone can do, right? There's only so many of those opportunities. So with so much emphasis, and, you know, we were just talking about contract freight. What are some advantages of focusing on both types of freight and still utilizing Manifold? Because there's certain market conditions where spot freight becomes particularly valuable, especially if you're in a contract where you have to get back on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think both are useful. I think it'd be silly for anyone to say that, you know, like, I don't need one or the other. Definitely, one thing I think is there's actually a relationship between the two. So first of all, you can actually use spot freight to get contracts. Another thing that Manifold lets you do, whether you're using us through a third-party platform or us, is you can historically look easily through all old shipments you didn't bid on, you can look at like there's a bunch of analytics, huge analytics component for this. Well, what one of our customers does is they use it to go like find, hey, looks like this shipper or looks like this broker is regularly posting this load on this lane. Then they will call them up and they'll say, hey, I really want this lane. Can we make a dedicated contract with this broker, right? Or if it's a shipper, they're like, can we just like add this to the and so that's a great way to just like actually get contracts, right?
Yeah.
Also, I think a great way to get a contract is you do a few spot loads, right? You show yourself you're doing a great job, and then you go, hey, can we just like take all this on? And more often than not, I think so. I think there's like that aspect of it, but then there's this other aspect of the market changes, right? And so, yes, right now people are really heavy contract, right? But the market's going to change, right? Everyone's, I'm not trying to say like I'm some seasoned veteran in this industry, but from the people that tell me that, like, because I do try to surround myself with those folks, is they're like, hey, the market's cyclical. And yes, maybe COVID was like a little bit of a white, black swan event. And like the spot prices for there was a bit unique, but spot prices are going to come back up. And you know what? I would much rather be the company that is like, I can easily dynamically shift between the two to maximize my overall return than be like right now, be like, oh, it's all contract. And then all of a sudden the spot market price is going up and you're like, you're not prepared, right? It's like the person that, like in the stock market always is like, by the time the prices are high, they're like, oh, I got to buy in. And then the prices drop and you're like, you're like constantly chasing the market versus just being like getting ahead of the market. And I think making sure you have both positions well formed with technology and you're able to act on both allows you to be ahead of the market always and therefore maximize money.
Yeah, when you can be proactive instead of reactive to the market, it makes you seem like you're invincible, right? I mean, when you can start seeing those shifts and you can start saying, "Oh crap!" like spot freight that's hitting my board is going up, and my contracts are still at XYZ. Maybe we should look at talking about our to our shippers or whoever our contracts are with about, hey, we're noticing in these markets, things are trending upwards. Maybe we need to renegotiate, or, hey, we can keep this for a certain level, but after, a certain time, we've got to negotiate. But then you can also say, hey, where can we, start to decline freight, right? Like if you're really starting to dive into it and saying, hey, well, maybe we don't need to take on this contract. There's so much out here in these areas we're in these contracts. And, we can get $1 more in the spot market per mile. We're going to take that all day, and we'll just turn down the contract tender.
Exactly. And there's actually flexibility in a lot of these contracts, right? It's not like you have to every single one to get accept 100%. So there is room for negotiating, even if you don't want to go play hardball with the shipper, which I actually, in my opinion, I think more carriers should, especially like on this next upturn. Because it's not like the shippers being goodwill to the carriers right now, where they're going like, oh, like, well, I know times are hard. They are all asking them shippers were like, oh, carriers, please save me. And I know some carriers did during the hard times of the pandemic. But from what I've heard is like those shippers aren't here for those carriers now. So it's like, I don't know. I think you just got to, probably play a little more hardball.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely good shippers out there who return the favor for sure. Yeah. But there's a good chunk that just it's all about the dollar and on the broker side too. It's everywhere. Yeah. I remember asking my carriers, hey, can you help me out on some of these loads? I was moving reefer garlic loads from California to Orlando. I was routinely moving them for $7,000. COVID hits and I have spot carriers and my normal guys asking me for $10,000, and my shipper's like, hey, like, no. And then every day they're like, hey, can you cover this for 99 for, 9,800, 9,700, 9,600. They're trying to save $100, $400. And I'm like, no, like we're going to have to be at like 10,500, 11,000. Because if my normal guy isn't there at $10,000, I got to go to the spot market. And sometimes the spot market guys are telling me $12,000. Yeah. So it's like, you really have to just you just have to play hardball with them, because they can say, hey, we'll help you out on the other side. But the other side may not happen. That person who you're working with could end up getting fired. You never know what's going to happen.
It's so true. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And again, I'm not saying like for those really special relationships out there, which they absolutely exist. I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I have a multi-year relationship with a customer, you're damn right I'm going to try to take care of them. You know, it's just, I think you have to be realistic. And by the way, that's okay. Like it's business is business. Like it's, you know, it's okay.
Yeah. No, exactly. And it's like you can help them to an extent, right? But it's also not cutting off your nose to save your face, right?
Exactly.
You can tell them, hey, if the spot market is 10 grand, I might be able to help you out and say run it for 95 or 94, help you out a little bit, but like I've got to make money, and you know, you guys know this is a business. Like if garlic prices spike or whatever, you guys are going to raise your prices, and the customer is saying, hey, please don't raise your prices. Well, you're going to say, sorry, I have to raise my prices.
Yeah, exactly.
And, so it comes with the territory. You know, you had mentioned analytics, and I love analytics. And I thought something you said was cool is when you can look at, you know, kind of when a broker is posting a load kind of routinely, you can really say, hey, like I can go in and you know, after you run it a few times, or even just say, hey, I noticed you guys are posting this. I'm in your network. That's a really big advantage when a carrier can call and ask that, right? Like there's always carriers who say, oh, I can run this for you all the time. But, you know, if you call them, hey, they never have a truck in the area, right? But that when you actually have trucks in the area and you're calling and being proactive and saying, hey, I can do this for you. I have a contract that brings me here. These are when I'm here. And when you start to develop that relationship, I mean, whenever I got carriers who would call me like that proactively and seemed like they were really interested in that freight, I was very inclined to give them a shot, or to start to, you know, give them those larger opportunities, because it was they saw, hey, those correlations. That means they're looking at analytics. That means they're smart and they're looking at their business opportunities in a good way. What other kind of analytics are you guys looking at or showing that kind of help carriers kind of most maybe optimize their opportunities?
Yeah. So historical lookbacks is great. I would say that's one of the bigger ones. The other thing will really help them do is analyze their win rates.
Oh, that's cool.
So you know, you can be like, okay, here's what I'm bidding. Am I winning? And honestly, with the win rate target for each individual is gonna be different. So you know, maybe you're fine with the 10% win rate because you're like, hey, I'm really trying to push my margin really hard. But then I think where you can go look at it, you're like, okay, am I oversubscribed? Like, am I actually finding freight really easy? Or if you're like really down, you're like, okay, like maybe let's like ratchet back these prices so we can increase our win rate and we can get more of these right lows. Or maybe on the other end, maybe your win rate's really high and you're like, hey, you can probably like increase prices a little bit and bid on a little bit more freight and you'll still be okay. Like you'll still that's how you maximize your margin. So that's another big thing. And then understanding team metrics too. You know, so who's bidding on what, how much freight are they bidding on? And where this actually helps the most is, and actually Mac, one of the guys at Manifold, he did post on this called lonely load boards, which is, it's so hilarious how many times, you know, you onboard a big shipper as a broker or a carrier. You know, we mostly focus on carriers but you know, you got me thinking brokers, and you, so you know, you want this big customer, and then no one's bidding on that load board, right? The spot opportunities. And then it's so funny. The story goes something like this. I got hurt, you know, in skiing or something like that. And I was hanging out, and I was like just hanging out, and I just decided to start looking. And I found this load board that no one was bidding on. I started bidding on these loads, and you know, we started making several extra 100K a month from this customer, because like this freight was just falling off the shelves. And I'm like, that is like, with Manifold, that goes away, right? Because you add all your load boards, and you can be like, hey, no one is bidding on Procter and Gamble. Again, I'm just using big names. You know, why is it anyone bidding on Procter and Gamble? All right, let's get this fixed, right? As a manager in leadership, you can really start to identify those gaps versus, or maybe another thing is there's a bunch of bidding on it, but no one's winning, right? And it's really interesting of why you don't win. Sometimes it's not always the price. Sometimes it's a relationship thing. And it's going to allow you to dissect as a leadership team going, okay, we're not winning with Procter & Gamble. We want to be winning with Procter & Gamble. Let's start having our account managers call them up. Let's go figure out why. Like, what's going here? Let's go break it down. Versus, you know, just not knowing, right? And it just kind of silently failing.
I think that that's cool, man, because a lot of carriers that I talk to normally don't know how often they're winning freight or when they're losing opportunities, right? That's something I looked at a ton as a broker, was how often with this shipper am I winning opportunities versus losing opportunities. And I would always rather, be too aggressive on rate and maybe lose it, especially an opportunity that I wasn't like super familiar with, right? If I was taking a gamble on something, I'd always rather lose the opportunity the first time, because if I saw something come up I was unfamiliar with, I would see how often they'd run it, right? If they started sending that to me 3 times a week for spot opportunity, okay, I'll bid on this a couple times, see how aggressive I can be, see how much margin I can try to make. And then, if I'm not winning it, okay, let's really hone in and see why. And then I would sometimes just call up my contact, like, hey, like, I've been bidding on this a couple times, like maybe what's the issue? And they'd be like, oh, like, you're just, a few $100s too high, or we've got a couple of assets that can run it, more effectively. But I would always try to look at those numbers because I wanted to know, is there somewhere where I can be more aggressive? If I'm winning 90% of the business that I bid on, maybe I'm being a little too cheap. Maybe I need to, add another $50 or $100 and see if that drops to 50 or to 25. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all about that. Same thing with those team metrics. I have a interesting story about that, because there was a team member that I had. I won't mention where it was at, but I had a team member at a brokerage that wasn't didn't have a good relationship with this customer, or they just whatever it was, they were moving freight before it fell into this person's lap, and I think someone had left and they had been given the opportunity. This customer didn't like them for whatever reason, and they didn't get any freight. And after about 30 days, they were like, hey, can you potentially take over and just kind of see what happens here? Within 15 days, we're moving freight again and moving probably 5 or 6 loads a week. It just all comes down to that kind of relationship. And if you've got a couple of people on your team as a carrier, and you can kind of just move things around and say, hey, maybe someone else takes this opportunity just to see if we can jar something loose, or just sometimes people butt heads, the personalities don't match. And when you can look at those metrics, long-winded way of saying, when you can look at those metrics and dive into it, you can see where those opportunities are falling through the cracks, where hey, if we're not bidding or winning enough of our Procter and Gamble freight or our Walmart freight, what's happening here? How can we fix that, and how can we make sure that we're winning more going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think well said.
Are there any, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit, we're kind of coming up on time a little bit. Are there any kind of specific, strategies that you found effective for, managing growth while scaling operations, especially after kind of the challenges, you've seen at Convoy, and kind of some of the opportunities in the market today? How has that balance been?
Yeah. So I think one big takeaway, and this was Convoy, and by the way, this is probably more on me than anyone else at Convoy, is building quality. It's actually why I have such one, I'm a builder, so I'm probably naturally inclined that way. I'm an engineer. I love building quality. I love and it always makes me think of, like a cheap car versus a nicer car, right? You close the door, it feels nicer, right? Just everything just feel like that's what I want to see in our software. But there's a really good carry-on effect of that I kind of learned. I got burned a lot of times at Convoys. If you try to build really fast and you be too scrappy, you actually end up paying more. Your customers are more frustrated. You spend more time debugging and trying to fix it. So we're actually a very slow. We have a very fast mindset in the sense of we try to move fast for our customers. We try to take on the world, but we're not trying to go too fast. And that is to say with one customer, we're going to make sure you really love us. We're going to make sure you're not experiencing any bugs. And we're not going to go really hard and going after more customers until you got that. And I have this philosophy that if you build that way, all of a sudden, you're actually ultimately going to go longer the long, because that next customer that you onboard, you're already going to work out a lot of those kinks of the previous one. Now that new customer will probably be, new problem, new customer, new problems, but less and less over time. And then that first customer, you're not having to go suddenly back, 6 months, after the fact and be like, oh, you're pissed, things aren't working.
Right.
Actually you already worked out all those kinks. You fixed all their bugs. I even try to even the smallest detail. They're if they wanted this little thing changed on the UI, I'll do it for them as long as it doesn't affect another customer, or I try to talk to them about it, but I'll even do that because I want these customers to feel like they have this quality experience, which I think is so lacking in software. Like,
oh yeah,
especially like business software where you're like, I don't know, it's just like this crappy interface.
It still feels like they're building for the like Windows 95 generation, the blue screen generation, but we're not that generation. We like, we come from the Apple and the Google development of polished products and beautiful tech designs and premium quality, and that's what we want and that's what we expect, especially in freight and in business solutions. It's clunky, it's old, it feels that way. So I think that I think you guys taking that approach, that methodology is smart, and it makes it feel like a more premium and polished product right out of the box.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So I know you said you guys are always looking for strategic partners. So I wanted to kind of ask, like, what are your plans for the next, few months? Are there any new features or partnerships that you guys are kind of like particularly excited about, or anything you can drop over the next, kind of few weeks that'll be coming out that you're kind of super excited about?
Yeah, definitely. We are focused a lot on partnerships right now. So, we have a couple of direct customers that we're working on onboarding, and we're just polishing up the product for them, building some really small features. Like if you place a bid, if you previously placed a bid on that exact lane and customer before, we'll automatically fill it in, and then we'll give you some like direct insights into, did you win it? Did you lose? Like what's the thing? And then network balancing, since, we work with a lot of carriers, we want to be like, hey, this origin, you're missing a bunch of trucks. This destination, you're missing, like connecting to their TMS to like get that information. So those are like a couple of features we're building, but a lot we are targeting like partners. And so, we're looking at some partners that maybe work with brokers. We weren't really, so much focused on brokers, but if we can find some partners that are focused on brokers, and we can help aggregate their spot freight, definitely something we're going to be doing. And then other partners in the carrier space, right? Factoring companies, let's go help. A lot of factoring companies have load boards. Like, let's go help build a load board for you that's like really unique and differentiated. Or optimizer is a big thing. I think like a very good use case for our tool. So that's definitely the kind of relationships we're focused on building and building tech for them. Therefore, like helping them manage their customers through our platform and so on.
As you like look to the future, right? Like we're sitting in October. What are you kind of like most bullish on for maybe the next, going into next year? And how do you kind of see the industry evolving over the next year or so?
Yeah, I think AI is real. That's a weird way of saying it, but I think there's going to be a lot of benefits that I'm really excited about. We actually, help leverage AI in our platform. For example, we also like aggregate spot opportunity emails, and so we use AI for that. I think it's just going to really help the industry, and it's actually, I'm hoping that we're well positioned to that. Is like, I think us having all this data will help other platforms leverage AI using our data to like further envelop. But I think I'm actually really bullish on the smaller and medium-sized carrier, and even larger sized carrier, getting a lot more tools to play with that are at a lower cost structure because of this new technology, and that they're able to just better compete, lower their cost structures, and just become more profitable over this. Hopefully we see that in tandem with kind of rebounding from this freight recession we're in. And like my outlook for it's really bright. And I think, even a few years from now, people are going to be like, wow, you used to book freight that way. Like, I don't do it that way anymore. Like, it's simple. Like, I mostly don't have to worry about it. I focus on driving my truck, or I focus on managing my business and my customer relationships versus doing all these menial tasks. I think a lot of them will, not be completely automated way, but like drastically simplified.
I think that we're moving towards that direction. And to me, you said that, I maybe should have touched on more in the podcast, was bringing some of these solutions that are cheaper for the carrier, right? A lot of these solutions that are out there are so damn expensive, and carriers just, especially in the market, in the margins they have right now, can't afford to add new tech and can't afford to be, potentially wasting money if it's a tool that doesn't actually provide value or help them. And there's so much noise out there in tech, so it's tough to find those solutions, that are reasonable and can help them in the way they're looking for. I think you're spot on. I think I'll piggyback off your point. I think AI is real. I think it's here to stay, especially in our industry. I think that there's a lot of cool tools coming out, and I think that AI is going to play a big role for carriers over the next couple of years as different tools are rolled out.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we wrap, man, are there any events that you'll be at to finish up this year, or anything going into next year that you want to plug? And so if people are there, they can come say hey.
You bet. I'm going to be at MCE. I'm flying out this Friday.
Sweet.
Super excited about it. I'll be at Carrier Broker Summit. Going to conferences.
I'll see you at Broker Carrier Summit, man.
Nice.
Yes.
It's one of the greatest joys of this job. It's so much fun meeting folks. I just have a blast. Yeah.
No, that's so cool, man. I can't wait to see you at Broker Carrier Summit. Dude, thanks so much for coming on the show today, spending 45 minutes talking about freight, Convoy and everything you've been up to. If our audience, wants to get in touch, they want to learn more, or they're interested in the platform, how can they get in touch with you?
Connect me on LinkedIn is a great way, or they can email me at oliver@manifoldfreight.com. But LinkedIn, I'm on it all the time. Just connect, say hi. Nothing needs to happen more than that. And definitely, if you're at one of these conferences, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. We'll hook up, because I just love meeting people. It's fun.
Yeah, like you said, it's one of the best parts of this job and in the industry. If you guys want to check out Oliver, want to learn more, I will have all of his links to him and to Manifold in the comments. If you guys like today's podcast, don't forget to give it a like and review. That does help us out a ton. And don't forget, we do drop 3 weekly newsletters at thinkfreight.io. We'll catch you guys in the next episode, and don't forget to think freight.